Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about a murder suicide that took place and believed to be by someone that was actually a prominent astrologer on social media. She was known to be a very strong astrology influencer, and her name is Danielle Johnson. She also went by the name Oyo. I don't know if I'm saying this right. Ayoka. I'm sorry, Danielle Ayoka, and she was also known as Mystic Lipstick on social media, and she had a number of social media sites. Again, she was at least fairly prominent, prolific astrologer on social media, and she at least allegedly she had stabbed her boyfriend to death, and she had pushed two of her children out of her vehicle while it was driving. I'm sure, I don't know what if it was, I imagine it was going at least pretty quickly. And then afterwards, she subsequently crashed her car into a tree and killing herself in the process. So this is believed to be a double murder. Suicide. One of the children survived. The 9-year-old child survived, but the other child was a baby. He was like 8 months old or something. That sadly perished. And first I want to offer prayers and condolences to the close friends and family members, of the people that have died. And the thing about this is it's a terrible tragedy. What had apparently had happened is that Danielle Johnson had, she had, well, I had actually seen it myself. She had the posts on Twitter and regarding the eclipse, and she had made some prophecy or prediction or what have you that the world was going to come to an end on that day. And it was very, of course, apocalyptic, foreboding, ominous posts that she had made. And I don't know, as far as the stabbing her boyfriend to death, and the pushing the two children out of the car, if that had actually a correlation with this or not. If she was afraid that the world was going to come to an end, and she decided to kill them, attempt to, well, she actually killed the boyfriend, and then one of the children died. But I don't know if that, was, how that played in to her prediction. If she was, did she kill them in order to avoid, in her mind, those people, to avoid the apocalypse? And I don't know if that was the reason, what the actual connection or correlation was between that. But I do know, at least she allegedly had stabbed her boyfriend to death, and pushed the two children out of the car, causing one to perish, and the other one sustained injuries and is still alive. And thank goodness, thank God that one of them at least survived this. And it's terrible that the baby had died, and that the boyfriend had got stabbed though to death. And the thing about this is, there's obviously a lot of mixed views on what had transpired, and it's a very subjective subject. I mean, assuming she did, I do believe, this happened where she did, she is guilty, I'm sure of this. And she actually, in that occasion, she did commit the crimes. And but I've heard some things on social media where people have speculated where she may have had some mental illness. And if that's the case, it's like one of those things where people don't want to necessarily cast aspersions or judgment or judgment on people. But the thing about it is, I mean, if she actually did this, then I mean, she is still culpable. And the thing about this is, if somebody does have, mental illness, then they need to, they have to take their responsibility and get it treated accordingly. You can blame, something on it, but at the same time, the person still has to be cognizant and make their decision in terms of getting the necessary help that is needed. And the thing about this is, I don't know her actual exact birth date. I mean, there was some sources on the internet that has Danielle Johnson being born in September of 1989, but there's no, birth date or time of birth, natal chart that at least that I could find. If anybody out there happens to know, any of her birth information, whether it's the full natal chart or even her birthday, let me know. My own feeling on this, the fact that, assuming she was born in September of 1989, I would lean, toward, the sun being in Virgo, the fact that it would be immutable, changeable sign, and maybe her, she may have been born maybe midway in September. I'm just speculating on this, somewhere, around between the 13th and the 15th. Her moon would be in Pisces then, which can show in some cases where very sensitive, emotional, chaos, and even, really maybe that emotional need, to do something with the metaphysical, which would include astrology, and making, I don't know, I guess she may have been, or at least felt she was intuitive or prophetic. So I wouldn't be surprised if she was around midway in September where she was born. It would put Mercury retrograde in ambivalent Libra. So I'm looking at all this, and then, this is where, but then again, I don't know this for a fact, and it's just conjecture, it's speculation on my part. And the thing is, I want to talk a little bit about her, about the chart on that day, on the event chart of this, the murder and the suicide, evidently, which took place involving Danielle Johnson. Now, and of course, so it was happened on April 8th, 2024. It was the day of the solar eclipse. And the thing about this is, I find interesting is that, when you have, an eclipse, the solar eclipse can often indicate, sadly, the passing of a dominant male in one's life. And sadly, she killed, according to reports, in all likelihood, killed her boyfriend. And that would be, the sun, solar eclipses, again, can often be about, the departure of a dominant male in one's life. And the thing about, this is too, when I look at this, the event chart, and solar eclipses often, monumental, life-altering things can transpire. And a thing about this is you have all this Aries energy on this eclipse. You have, on the day of the eclipse, Venus, the moon, the north node, the sun, Chiron, and Mercury, all in volatile, combative, truculent Aries. So it's a lot of this, you have a lot of anger, volatility on this day. Mercury being retrograde in Aries on top of that. The mind, a lot more, emphasis on volatile thoughts, aggressive behavior. The thing about this too, at the time of this event as well, keep in mind the sun also governs children. And at the time of this event, 4:30 on April 8th, 2024, 4:30 a.m., around that time approximately, according to the report on Newsweek, is when Danielle Johnson pushed the children out of the vehicle and then subsequently crashed her car into a tree and killed herself. Chiron in Aries was making a very tight conjunction to the sun in Aries, interestingly enough, at this time. And again, the sun is connected, governs children. Chiron, is about, suffering physical and emotional wounds, and being an very, volatile, truculent Aries. And Aries can be connected with accidents as well. In this chart, at the time, for April 8th, 2024, 4:30 a.m., Redondo Beach, California, the ascendant, which is the face, basically, essentially, of the event, is in Pisces, actually. And, it's very, confounding, deceptive, very, delusional energy. Pisces can be self-deceptive. And it's very, the event had a lot of course, chaos, I would say, connected with it. And Mars was in Pisces as well, being in the first house. Mars again is connected with accidents. Pisces can be, what's confusing, confounding, and anger that may Mars and Pisces by itself can be anger, that could be senseless, that could be confounding. Conjunct Saturn, which puts more concentration in this, and sadly there may have been, more despondency as well. The thing about this event chart as well, what I notice, what stands out, okay, is that the majority of the planets, 9 of the 10 planets, fall in the first quadrant. The first quadrant consists of houses 1, 2, and 3. So the energy is very self-centered, egocentric, and you have all those planets in Aries, which is connected with the self. And what I noticed too, the fact that Chiron conjuncts the Sun, makes the tight conjunction at this event, is also could be a lot of emotional suffering and wounds connected with one's identity. The Sun is connected with the identity. Aries, Chiron and Aries by itself can go through suffering connected with one's identity, one's place in the world. And the thing about this is too, you also have, at this time, you have not just, 9 of the 10 planets in that first quadrant in the chart of this event. Okay, you have all 10 planets in a fairly, congested, cluster, in the chart. They're basically within a very, relatively, small, span of degrees. You have Pluto in Aquarius at 1 degree, almost 2 degrees. And then, you have the last planet, Uranus, in Taurus at 21 degrees. All the planets fall, basically, it's like, 100 and, 110 degrees. They're all in that bundle. They all fall in that, those degrees, in that you basically in a small, I guess you call it like a small degree, span of degrees. And when you have that energy, it can indicate, energy where one is not allowing extraneous things to interfere, with what he or she is doing or going to do. It's like less about distractions, more that, sadly, that single-minded focus of energy. And also, as well, I've noticed is that the thing about this is too, another thing that stands out to me is that Pluto in Aquarius is squaring Mercury in volatile Aries at this time. Mercury squaring Pluto, by itself, can suggest obsessive thinking. It could be vengeful thinking, and really also wanting, somebody, Pluto, and you have Mercury again being in volatile Aries. Pluto, it's interesting because Pluto, in Aquarius, collectively, during the time of the transit can actually indicate possible obliteration or destruction of humanity. And you have the square for Mercury and angry Aries to it. So it's like it forms, when you have a square aspect, it's a negative relationship between planet A and planet B. And again, could be very obsessive thinking. Really, she may have had the obsessive thinking in her mind that the world was going to come to an end. Of course, it didn't. I'm talking right now, and the people, we're all still around. And you also have all this, energy, in Pisces as well. There's in this event chart, okay, you have the ascendant in Pisces, and you also have three planets in Pisces, Mars, Saturn, and Neptune, all in Pisces. So again, that energy is very, deceptive, delusional. Pisces, is about, less fortunate. It's about, secret sorrows. And what's interesting too is that article, the blog on Newsweek.com, had also made interesting, I thought it's a fairly compelling statement, is that a lot of, there was some quote about a pandemic within the pandemic, because when you have, the pandemic, people understand what that was, but I think what they said about the pandemic within the pandemic is that it may have caused a lot, people, due to isolation, might have affected, some people's rational thinking, maybe. I'm guessing is that what it may mean. I don't know that 100%, but if that's the case, this could be something where people can learn from. Maybe Danielle Johnson, aka Danielle Ayoka, may have succumbed to some kind. Maybe something happened to her emotionally or on a mental level. If she had been in a situation where she was isolated from her, prolonged time, or more so than usual due to the COVID situation that is ongoing, and other people may, naturally as well, and and if she did have, something, some kind of mental illness, maybe it had something to do, with the COVID situation, where people, unfortunately having, living a life more of solitude, seclusion, and isolation. So those are some things I wanted to talk about as far as this goes. In the event chart as well, all the planets fall on the left side of the chart. And when you have, preponderance of planets on the left side of a chart, whether it's an event chart, whether it's a natal chart, or what have you, the energy generally is more independent and self-reliant, as opposed to being about, doing things with others, being dependent. So this energy shows at this time where a lot, people in general, and in this event, unfortunately for something negative, that Danielle Johnson, somebody that was going to do, unfortunately, what she wanted to do, there was not going to be any interference. It wasn't going to be about, getting any kind of, consoling with anybody about what was going to happen. She made the decision to do this, it seems like, and she wasn't going to let anybody thwart her in the efforts. There's no oppositions, opposing energy in this event chart. Now you do have the square with Pluto and Mercury, but the thing is, there's really, there's really not many. That may be the only adverse aspect, aspect of conflict in this event chart. Mars, which is about, anger, action, volatility, accidents. There is no adverse aspect made to Mars. And when you have, when Mars is not, doesn't have anything opposing it or squaring it, the energy sadly can go more freely, I would believe, without being opposed. So those are, that is something else to take note of as well, as far as this event chart goes. But anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.